Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. So, good evening and welcome to the Georgia Firefighters Burn Foundation GFBF Talks. And this is our third installment, or third episode, as Vanessa likes to call it. And our first session we did, it was adult burn survivors burn. There's kids talking about their feelings and emotions. The last episode, number 2, was really impactful because we had the spouses of firefighters come on and just share where they are. Because I think when people see firefighters, they tend not to think that they're connected to a family somewhere. You know, there are spouses, there are kids, there are families. And I thought it was really good that we were able to share a little bit of that. And based on the strong responses we got, it was dictated to us that this third session needed to be with firefighters. And I just want to say, on behalf of the Georgia Firefighters Burn Foundation, thank you guys very much for taking the time and interest in being on here. I know with things happening now with the COVID-19 pandemic, you guys in the fire service are busier now than you've ever been. So I recognize that, and because of that, we all that much more appreciate you taking the time to be here. And before I get into, I'm going to have you guys introduce yourself, but you know, this COVID-19 pandemic, it's got us all in a different place. We're just in a different place. And I want to acknowledge all the essential personnel that are out here doing it. You know, there are people who are out here by choice. There are people who are out here because it's what they have to do, but it's appreciated. And we want to take the opportunity to say that we appreciate all the essential personnel that are out here. But for us, because we work so intimately with the fire service, that's where we want to focus. So we're not talking about firefighters and ignoring everyone else. We acknowledge everyone else, but we want to focus on firefighters. And actually today is May 4th. And I want to thank you guys and congratulate you because it's International Firefighters Day today. And I'd love to say that we planned it that way, but the reality is it was quite a coincidence. And so International Firefighters Day, we recognize you guys, and you know, you guys have a day to be recognized, but really you should be recognized every day. You should be recognized every day. And before we get started, I have you guys do your introductions. I want to read something to you or share it with our audience. And it's called the Firefighters Prayer. And I know you guys are all familiar with that. And I like to just read that as we get into this conversation. And it's the Firefighters Prayer. When I am called to duty, God, wherever flames may rage, give me the strength to save some life, whatever be its age. Help me to embrace a little child before it is too late, or save some older person from the horrors of that fate. Enable me to be alert and hear the weakest shout, and quickly and efficiently to put the fire out. I want to feel my calling and give the best in me to guard my every neighbor and protect their property. And if, according to your will, I am to lose my life, please bless with your protecting hand my family from all strife. And I know you guys have heard that a gazillion times before, but I wanted to share it with the folks who are listening in because this touches me personally, because that second line that's helped me to embrace a little child before it is too late. That resonates with me because I was that little child. You know, I got burned as a child, and it was firefighters. It was you guys who came in a burning house and got little Dennis out of that house and got me to the hospital where I can get the help that I needed. So it was you guys that embraced the little child before it was too late. And I would be remiss if I didn't take this opportunity just to genuinely and sincerely, on behalf of the Georgia Firefighters Burn Foundation and from the communities you serve, to say thank you for what you've dedicated yourself to do. But on a personal note, I have to say thank you because you helped me and you impacted my life. You know, you guys got me out of a burning house and got me where I could get some help at the hospital. You guys kept our house from burning down, because I don't know where my parents would have went with 9 kids if their house had burned down. But more than anything else, I always want to take an opportunity to say thank you, because more than anything else, you kept my parents from burying one of their kids. And I could never say thank you enough for that. That's why this is so close to my heart. And when I say it's an honor, and I hear people call you guys heroes, you're heroes at the time that you're needed. And other times people don't give firefighters a second thought. But I just want you to know that you guys do make a difference, because you made a difference in my life, and you made a difference in my family's life. And we recognize that firefighters are people too. And I thought that would be an appropriate way to start this dialogue this evening. And now that I've gotten my thank yous out of the way, I want to take an opportunity for you guys to each introduce yourselves. And we can start with you, Dustin.
Hey, I'm Dustin Hutto. I'm the deputy chief, or I'm a deputy chief with the city of Hazelhurst, Jeff Davis County Fire Rescue. I've been there since 1999, and I have a wife named Morgan, been married for 15 years, and we have 2 children, Jonathan, who just turned 13, and Abigail, who is 8, but thinks she's 28. So that's who I am, and it's great to be here.
Great. Jason.
Hey, Jason Williams. I'm a captain with Cherokee County Fire and Emergency Services. I've been in the fire service 18 years, which is crazy to say. This year, me and my wife Mackenzie, she was on the last episode, so many people probably remember from that. But she's also works with the Burn Foundation. We just had a baby as well in February, Hensley. She's amazing. And yeah, that's me.
And she looks just like you, much to Mackenzie's chagrin.
Yeah.
Yes, Pat.
Pat Wilson, currently fire chief of Coweta County Fire Rescue Department, and just so proud to be a part of Coweta County and this organization here and this team. And been in the fire service for 34 years, and this October of 2020 will be 35 years in the fire service. Started right now close to Dustin there in Wheeler County, Alamo, Georgia, as a volunteer firefighter. Just a passion for the fire service, a passion for people and serving people, most importantly. And so a long time in the service, passionate about training and education, and very passionate about this foundation and being a part of that. Also been married for almost 30 years. I think we're at 28 the last time I checked, and home now. So I know I got to make sure that number's right, and it is. So my wife, Mandy, who just recently has come home, and I'll talk more about that later on in the program. We have 3 amazing kids. DJ is our oldest. We have Chelsea, who is in the middle, and my youngest, Mark, who's they're all down in Statesboro right now. But just very proud and honored to be a part of today. A lot of folks I know that may be on, I've had an opportunity to teach or be around or just have conversations with over the last 34 years, and just very proud to be able to do this tonight.
Great, thank you. And last but not least, the world famous and much loved Chief Tony Washington.
Good afternoon. My name is Tony Washington. I am the fire chief for the city of Decatur. I've been in the fire service for 28 years, and I think to be in that long, you just have to love what you do, and I definitely do. It's great to be on the call today and be able to share my experience, and also I'm here with the other panelists are saying, especially now that we're going through a difficult time in this world. I have 3 amazing daughters, all grown, so not dependent, but I'm most excited about my 2 grandsons, and Logan. Those are my heart. So yeah, just really glad to be here. And Pat didn't mention, but he is, I'm the chair He's the vice chair for the Burn Foundation, and we're just glad to, have been a part of the organization for so long and still be able to serve in the capacity that we do.
Absolutely.
Great. Well, thank you all for those introductions. And, talking about the Georgia Firefighters Burn Foundation, we really want this to be less of a commercial and more of something that's going to inspire people. But since you guys brought it up, if anyone's interested in the Georgia Firefighters Burn Foundation, supporting us, getting on our mailing list, and just seeing what we're doing or becoming part of our volunteer staff, you can go to our website at www.gfbf.org, and there's contact information there and a little information on what we're doing and right now what we're not doing. That's www.gfbf.org. And in your introductions, you guys have been in the fire service. I was trying to add it up in my head, and there's over 200 years of fire service experience just on this call right here, I think, close to it. And someone said you have to have a passion for something to do it that long. And I would have to disagree with that. My dad worked in the auto factory for 46 years, and he never liked it. But my dad had a third grade education, and it was a way that he could really, really take care of his family. So he did it for his family, but not that he liked what he did. So I can so appreciate you guys doing it and really passionate about it. But as you guys talked about your years of experience, you talked about your positions and things. You also talked about family members. And I think what I hope come out of this conversation is that firefighters are people too. You're not just robots out here keeping our community safe, but you're people too. And I would imagine being in the fire service, there are certain things that you leave at the job and you don't take home with you. There may be experiences, an accident, or things that you see that you just don't take home. And now with this pandemic, adding on to what you already do, how do you not take it home? Or how has that changed the lifestyle of going home? Because you got to take it home with you now because you don't know what you've been exposed to. How has that impacted you guys? This is for anyone on the panel.
I would say, Dennis, at my level, I think I take everything home.
Mm-hmm.
But on top of what we're dealing with now, it's really, really been difficult because there have been many nights that I'm not getting enough sleep. I always stay up worrying about, how I'm going to make sure not only that the community that I serve is protected, but also the firefighters that are out there working hard every day. How do we protect them and their families? Because what happens at work, if in the event that something happens at work, then they could possibly take that home. So, it's very hard to shut down now. Before, again, I always thought about the fire service, but you were able to turn it off a little bit and then turn it back on. And then now it's like it's no turning off. It's you're working all the time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Certainly, and Tony, to your point, I think that's the biggest piece, at the, executive level of a fire department is you do bring it home. Did we do everything we needed to do? Did we buy that piece of PPE that they needed? Did we have a policy in place to protect us? And I think, early on in this event, for me, it was some things that we found out on the backside that we needed to address. And to me, that was hard knowing, hey man, we could have exposed somebody, what did we do everything, right? And I think that's the part, I think when you talk about the restless nights, you're up at midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, man, did we do this? Or maybe you're working on that next document that needs to go out tomorrow to make sure your folks are safe. And then, like I said, monitor the radio, whatever it takes, it comes home with you. So it's not so much necessarily the COVID-19, but I am worried about what our folks carried home and did we do everything humanly possible.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It operationally for us running calls and being interactive with the citizens that way, it's changed a little bit for me personally, just because, you know, we have a newborn and I don't want to bring home anything to my wife anyway. The thing about the fire service, and I think all of us could say the same thing, is when we first started, there was a mentality of you don't take stuff home. You know, leave home at home and leave work at work. And kind of what I've bought into over the last several years of my career is how do you leave the 2/3 out of the 1/3, and how do you leave the 1/3 out of the 2/3? You can't. So stuff's always going to crisscross and make it back and forth. And I think it's super important to be honest. And if you have something you need to talk about it. And if you have something that concerns you at home, well, if you feel comfortable with your crew, then talk about it, because all of it intermingles together. And that's one of the great things about our profession is we got a lot of people that are willing to listen. And even at home, I mean, that's why we're in that relationship.
But it isn't that the exception to the rule, because as fire service, doesn't the tradition say suck it up and move on to the next fire? You know, scoop the body off the freeway and move on to the next incident. So isn't that actually the exception to the rule? That's not really how it works, is it?
Well, that is, I think that is the image that sometimes we portray as firefighters. But we are human, and like Jason said, it's very hard for something to happen at work and for you just to totally forget about it. I would say over the last 5 years, the fire service has really focused on mental wellness, because a lot of times, you know, for a long time, firefighters just did not talk about it. We came in the fire service, and traditionally we had to put on this face like everything's always good with us, and you know, I'm okay. Well, really, because we are human, we deal with different things, and we must talk about it to get past it, or either at least for it to settle in with our brains and to be okay with moving forward. So we're no longer hiding anymore. We're actually communicating more and focusing on our mental wellness and mental health, so that when we see things and we go through things like this COVID-19, that we talk about it and learn how to deal with it. So the impact on ourselves and our family is not as great as it used to be.
But as a firefighter, now Dustin, you're a leader in the community. And if I'm looking to you as the person that's keeping my community safe, don't you have to be okay? For me as the citizen, don't you have to be okay? Or portray it anyway? What kind of pressure is that?
There is tremendous pressure there, because on the one hand, you have to be cautious, and you have to or for me at least, recognize the issue that's out there, the coronavirus. It's a scary thing, but on the other side of it, you have to cautiously prepare your people, tell them to exercise caution and try to mitigate the panic as much as you can. And sometimes it's hard to do that, because again, you're a person that has a family that you're worrying about as well. On a personal note, my daughter has been diagnosed with chronic arthritis. She has autoimmune disease, and she's on immunosuppressive drugs. And what if I bring this home to her? So that's playing in the back of my mind, while I'm also trying to calm the panic with our people and try to make sure they're getting the right information, and give it and let them know in such a way, this is the information, but this is what you can do to keep yourself safe. Try to give them a peace of mind without giving them a false sense of security. And there can be a thin line there.
Now, when we had the session with the spouses, they talked a lot about supporting their significant other in what they do, despite being nervous about it, scared about it. They want to support them because they know they're passionate about it. Now, I want to put this question to the panel. How does that go the other way? You know, if your spouse is supporting you because you're passionate about it, even though they're nervous and have some apprehensions, but they want to support you, how do you support them where they are? You know, like they're nervous. And because one of the things that I think is misleading, you guys have a very dangerous job. You guys have a job that keeps you busy. And I think people tend to think that because this virus is here, everything else is put on hold. I talked to a fire chief last week who one of his guys got burned. And he said when there was a time, it was big news. and now it's kind of, you got burned, but at least he didn't have the virus. So I think there's this feeling that somehow you're doing this instead of all the other stuff. But if your spouse is already a little nervous about your profession and they support you in it, how do you support them?
I mean, for me, it would be the reassurance that we're taking every precaution that we know how to. And I've been pretty fortunate in our department. Our chiefs and our medical director have been pretty proactive in the PPE realm and the enforcement of wearing it. So it's ultimately my role too as an officer in the fire service to make sure people are following those rules as well. So out of the many calls that have happened with COVID, we have a pretty good percentage of firefighters, a very, very good percentage of firefighters that haven't tested positive or anything like that. So whatever precautions we're taking are working, and it's just communicating that information to my wife and my family that what we are doing is working. So if I do my job right, then it's going to be okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Then I would throw in very, very similar, coming, that support side. My spouse, I asked her to leave, trying to get her to, to an area I thought was a little bit safer, perhaps, that just had not had the big experience that we had here locally and what's going on even today. And I think probably the biggest piece is just, and I think to everyone else's kind of comment on it, is that we have to be open and honest. Hey, yeah, this is serious. And, but hey, we're taking every precaution. Here are some of the things we get from CDC, and it's having those conversations that lay it out there. And I think, again, open honesty, hey, yes, I am nervous about it. And then just those reminders, hey, make sure you take all your precautions. I want to take all mine. Remind me, and we remind each other. And I think that really helps as we, support each other through the difficulty. I know for my wife, being away, that conversation about, hey, when do I get to come home, you think? And, just trying to work through that together so that we bring her back at, hopefully a better time, a safe time that she can be safe herself, because she has some underlying medical problems with related to her heart. And I was very concerned, to be quite honest with you, and but not wanting to scare her either. So you always have to think about that, not to say, hey, baby, I think if you get it, you may lose your life. But it's more about just saying, listen, let's take the precautions we need to take, and we'll do this together. We'll talk about it every day. And the other piece for us was praying through it.
And I had a couple of conversations with you, Pat, about your wife being away. And I don't want to share any more than you're willing to share, but I know you talked about how difficult that was, coming home every day to an empty house. And what was that like for you? Not as Chief Wilson, but what was that like for you as Pat, coming home to an empty house?
Yeah, and I will say, like everyone else, I'm gonna make my little funny here. The first few days is like, hey, I got the house myself, right? You kind of think that for a moment, right? But then you realize, man, you're coming home to an empty house, and day after day. And I think, honestly, from Pat is, you get in, and then the first thing you watch is the news, and you're hearing everything that's going on. The numbers are going up, and then then I'm worried about my wife, where she's at. Is she okay? I'm not only looking at Coweta County and a metro Atlanta area, but I'm also looking at Statesboro, where she was at. And then, for me, coming home to an empty house was challenging. And then you add in that we had some opportunities with some storms and stuff that, so I was getting home like, I think one night after one of the series of storms that came through at about 3 o'clock in the morning, and nobody was here, right? It was just very weird, very just different, that normally I would have had, she probably would have been asleep, but at least, she knows, hey, you're home, and you kind of, you say what you would say when you, when you let, a spouse know you're home from a call or a situation. And that was a little challenging for me. It was a couple nights, I have to tell you, you're sitting here and you think, it makes you appreciate family even more. I know for me personally, I told her, she got home, I said, hey, listen, I'm so glad you're back. I know I fuss about a lot of things sometimes as a spouse, as a husband about things or this, that, or the other. I'm telling you, I'm glad you're home because it has been tough. It's, you're trying to lead at work and then, just not knowing the status, at least 100% of your family and making sure that they're okay. It was a challenge for me personally.
But what about you, Dustin? Not the deputy chief, but Dustin, you say your daughter has an autoimmune issue, which makes her even more susceptible to this pandemic thing. What's that like for you as a dad?
As a dad, to be honest with you, it scares me. As a dad, yeah. I mean, I'm like any other dad. I want to do everything I can to see to the well-being of my children. And when you throw that whole thing in with the autoimmune disorder and the immunosuppressive drugs that weaken her immune system. I mean, she's on medication that builds it back up, but the fact of the matter is it's still there, and very cautious with her. Like with us, we're not sending her to any kind of daycare. My wife and I were taking turns staying home with her. She's staying with my mom some, things like that. But I think that one way is to, like everybody's talked about, is show that support within the family network with one another. If be honest, like these other guys have said, be honest with your family, let them know what's going on, but also honor the precautions that they want to take in the home, even if you feel like they may be a little overkill. If your spouse says, take your uniform off in the garage before you come in, do it. It makes your family feel safe. Mm-hmm. It removes the panic from your home. And if you can remove the panic from your home, that's a start.
Mm-hmm. You guys are doing something like that, aren't you, Jason? Your routine coming home has changed quite a bit, hasn't it?
Yes, to a degree. But even at our department too, they've been super proactive as far as what we can and can't do. So one of the things that we can't do is have uniforms at home. We can't launder uniforms at home. We're wearing civilian clothes in and then out, and so that's, like I said, I've been pretty fortunate on that end where we've been trying to stay ahead of it, and our medical director and our EMS chief definitely been pushing us forward in that direction. So. But things have changed as far as what I care about when I get home. First thing I want to do is run in and give my wife a kiss and kiss my baby girl. But you gotta clean up, wash up before you can do any of that. But really, in reality, as firefighters and what we're exposed to anyway, we should probably been doing that before all of this. So it's just kind of put more of a spotlight on it.
We got a few questions coming in, and I'm gonna shoot this one to you guys. I'm gonna shoot it to you, Tony. And the question is, a call in asked, what do you do when you are just overloaded mentally as a firefighter?
Wow. So it's funny, today I really was just really overwhelmed for the first time about everything that's been going on for the last couple of months. I've had a lot of sleepless nights. I've been working late, working on the weekends. And today was the first day that I felt just mentally overwhelmed. So I just had to take a few minutes. I had to take a few minutes and just sit at my desk and digress. I think I talked to Dennis for a little while today. I reached out to a couple of other friends, and I just had to really talk about what I was experiencing. I think that what has happened over the last few years is that, because we have to put on the facade that we're good and nothing bothers us and we got this, that we swept things under the rug and really did not deal with our feelings. But I've learned over the last few years that it's imperative that, I don't ignore that stuff, that I talk about it and I do what I need to do so I can decompress, and then I can jump right back on the bandwagon and keep going. So I'll make sure that I'm doing what I need to do to protect my community as well as the firefighters that I serve.
Mm-hmm. When I stopped by your office today to get some paper signed, but we sat outside on the bench of your department and we just talked for about 15 minutes in the sunshine. And I have to tell you, because you're a very dear friend of mine, but I have to tell you, when you were telling me and sharing how you were just struggling today, I wanted so much to just give you a hug. I mean, I really did. And I could not do it. Me personally, I wanted to say, the hell with the virus. I'm gonna give my friend a hug because I think she could really use it today. And that was really hard for me. And when I left your station, I was playing back in my mind, what else could I have done? And the reality is, sitting there listening to you was all I needed to do.
Yes.
But under normal circumstances, I would have listened, but I also would have gave you a hug. We sat on opposite sides of the bench, and it's like, wow. And sometimes it's just listening. And actually, Dustin, you and I had a conversation about that very thing. If you care to share, like sometimes it's just listening and not having to do anything.
Yeah, that's so important. Just listening. And I don't mind sharing my story that I shared with you today just briefly. Back in January, I lost my dad. My dad passed away, and I'm still dealing with that, because that's fresh, that's raw. And I'm still dealing with that in the midst of all of this, and that's tough. And when he passed away, I have some. I'm a regular golfer, but I'm not a good golfer, and I have
most of us. Mm-hmm.
I lie on my score sheet. But anyway, I had a good friend that the week after we buried my dad, he took me out and treated me to 18 holes, and we got in the cart, and he was just like, if you want to talk about it, talk about it. If you don't want to say anything, we'll ride in silence, whatever you want to do. And sometimes during this, that's so important. And in the fire service, you have an extension of your family at work. You have people that you work with that they're not just coworkers, they're brothers and sisters. And you love your family. And like you said, you wanted to hug your friend.
Mm-hmm.
You really wanted to hug your sister and
Mm-hmm.
let her know it was okay, or
Mm-hmm.
not that it was okay, or that you were there, and give some comfort. And that can't be there. But sometimes when you have people that work with you, or in my case, people that work, under me that I manage, sometimes you just need to listen to them talk if they're going through something. They're going through, they have fear, or they have concern, or they have dealt with something, because like we've already said, these other calls don't stop. We still go to the car accidents, we still go to the fires, we still go to all of these things, and we still have those same emotions from the things that we see that aren't related to the coronavirus.
Mm-hmm.
And then then this that we're going through right now just piles on top of that.
Right. And how beneficial was it, or why was it important just to have somebody listen to you without giving you any advice or telling you that everything is going to be okay?
Because I'm at the point in my journey with what I've been through this year so far that I don't want to get over it. I don't want to get past it. I want to grow. I want to grow into it. I want to cope with it. and somebody who was just willing just to let me talk, or not talk if I wanted to, or talk about something totally unrelated.
Mm-hmm.
That meant so much, because it let me have that moment, like Chief Washington said, to just decompress, just get away from all the noise, and just, deal with it the way I felt like I needed to at the moment.
Yeah. We've got Jimmy Giddens, who's on now from Atlanta Fire. You're there, Jimmy?
Hey, can everybody hear me?
We hear you a couple of times. You're echoing. Hello?
Yeah, sorry about that. Thank you for letting me join. I'm honored. One thing that we have done is we have modified our dispatch protocols. Seeing how that Grady EMS can't put out fires and do hazmats, one thing that we're trying not to do is respond to these COVID calls. Grady EMS is the primary EMS provider, so we let them to respond. Of course, some gets through the cracks, but those fire departments that don't transport, let your transport agencies respond to these calls. If they have flu-like symptoms, we don't respond. If they've possibly COVID, we don't respond. And we're working with Grady and our medical directors, and that's something that has really helped us. As well, we have wellness checks twice a day. In the morning, when our personnel come in, they get screened with thermometers, make sure they have no temperatures. If they do, they're sent home. And then we have a wellness check at 7 p.m. at night as well for our firefighters. That's a couple things that we're doing to keep our workforce healthy. And that's one of the things that we're trying to do is maintain our infrastructure.
Mm-hmm. Let me ask you a question, Jimmy. I know when you used to be in the station, you used to sit out front and play your guitar. And I remember back in the day, and you told me that was your way of just leaving the station without leaving.
It is.
You said that was just so relaxing to you. And in times like this, what's your guitar now? What do you use now to separate yourself, or to have a reprieve, or to decompress? If it's not the guitar, maybe you do. I don't know.
No, actually, I don't anymore, because now it's 7 days a week for us. And,
right.
15, 16, 17, y'all chiefs know, 18, 20 hours a day sometimes, depending upon what we have going on. A couple of things is you need to take time out for yourself. To first thing, be thankful whenever you wake up in the morning. I thank God for my health and my kids' health. Then you have to take some time out for yourself in order to just, go work out, go walk, put your music on, do something that you really enjoy. And that really helps me out as well. And Chief come out with a great idea of all the deputy chiefs. We've been working so hard for the last 6 weeks, like everybody else, is he's getting everybody 3 days off. Don't answer the phone, don't check your emails. He's doing that, and that's really helping out a lot as well.
Mm-hmm.
Even Chief Washington, take off for 3 days, let your second person in charge deal with everything. When you come back, you're refreshed, you're back to normal, and that really helps out as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Can you really take 3 days off right now? I got a quick question though before you answer that. Someone asked if they buy an N95 mask, are they taking that away from first responders who are already short on equipment?
We're to the point now, we're going beyond the N95 mask. We're going to the KN95 mask. I'm not sure if y'all are familiar with those, with the shortage of N95s. In addition, we're actually reusing our N95s. What we're doing is if we come back with a COVID call, we'll don our N95s and then don a surgical mask over the N95s. And then once we leave the call, we take the surgical mask off, and then we maintain our N95s. That's something we're doing to help conserve PPE.
So if someone wants to purchase a mask, they should go ahead and do it because they're not taking a mask away from a firefighter.
Correct.
Okay.
And the other challenge right now still is probably for the general public being able to find the N95. Just where you might would have found them at some of the local stores, they're just not there. But I think for the most part, we're doing okay. We've been blessed in Georgia, I believe. I think that, we could have been a lot worse. I think had it not been for the actions of some of our leadership at, whether it be in the city of Atlanta or other communities around the region that early said, hey, listen, we need to start sheltering in place. We need to start closing, restricting back some of the business piece of it. We could have easily been in New York City. I think about our friends right southwest Georgia, Albany, that just took a terrible beating, and their community was devastated. I know I was talking to my first cousin who lives there. She says for a couple of weeks, every day she got phone calls about somebody she knew that had passed away. So that tells you we've been blessed here. I know we've in Coweta County alone, with just 4 deaths, 4 too many, but still the numbers have been relatively low, and even around our whole region. Outside of places like Albany and I think Fulton County still has the highest number of deaths. I think 127 was the last number I saw. So to the person that's asking about the N95s, I think that hey, if you can buy one, I don't think you're necessarily taking anything away from us. And you need to do what you need to do to protect yourself, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Up to that, you have to be careful of now is the counterfeits. We're coming across a lot of counterfeit masks, and people are still N95 mask, and you have to be very selective on the mask that you choose. We don't want people to have false hope to say, okay, I got an N95 and it's truly not an N95 mask.
Right.
Good point, Jim.
Someone asked about balance being a virtue during these times. It's not a question, but it's a comment. And it sounds like it's a comment from a firefighter. They're talking about maintaining a positive attitude despite the different personal opinions and the different political positions people have working in a station, and just maintaining that balance. But Tony, I want to ask you, like, you were struggling today mentally, just emotionally, just you're full. Now, what do you do? And this is for anybody, I guess. What do you do if one of your charges, somebody on your team, has that during their shift? How do you respond to that? We got chiefs on here, captains. What do you do then? Do you?
I've actually had to deal with that more than once, unfortunately. And again, a lot of times people just need a listening ear. So I really kind of encouraged them or pushed them to talk about what they're feeling and what they're going through. We also have EAP that I often will refer employees to. Even
an EAP is what, for those who don't know what that is?
Employee Assistance Program. Sorry.
Okay, that's okay.
But a lot of times people just really need to talk. And, I always share insight with all of the firefighters, the knowledge that I have acquired from reading so much over the last 8 weeks, because the CDC guidelines is constantly changing. So I try to focus on what the CDC is putting out and not necessarily what I'm hearing on the news, because, it differs a lot. But most of the time it's just really listening to them and encouraging them to either talk to me, and if they're not comfortable with me, at least talking to a family member or a good friend, but not bottling it up, because at some point you explode. And that's really where, I think that all of these weeks I've been trying to make sure everybody else is okay, or everybody else is okay. Every time one of my firefighters are tested for COVID-19, I hold my breath, waiting to get the answer. So again, you can't just kind of keep all of that stuff bottled up. You have to talk. So I'll encourage them to talk to me, or if they're not comfortable talking to me, talk to someone.
Hey, Chief, that's a great comment. Something else that we're doing as well, we started a little over a month ago, is we're having a safety stand down on every Friday. We have one at 7:30 and one at 10 a.m. We give weekly updates of COVID-19s. We give weekly updates of the treatments and new changes, and we allow our personnel to ask us any questions. And we try to give them reliable information. That's one of the challenges that we have, with people getting wrong and misinformation and acting upon it. So we try to keep them updated on a weekly basis. We do it every Friday, 7:30 a.m. and they log on to like Zoom right here, and they can ask any question that they choose, and we try to answer as best as possible.
Jimmy, we're doing in Coweta doing something very similar to that, and I think that's probably one of the biggest pieces is making sure that we're communicating with our folks. I think from a leadership and a leadership point of view, we have to keep people informed as best we can. I think to Washington's point, she talked about encouraging people to talk about it. We've had challenges, and much like Chief Washington, every time we would hear about a positive COVID that we maybe responded on, and then assessing our folks and to get the message that have one of your folks that has been infected. That happened just a few weeks ago for us. We got the phone call and or the message that one of our folks had was being tested. Their spouse had already tested positive for coronavirus, and then a few days later to find out this young firefighter was going through the same thing, and that was a scary time for me, right? And the thing I was thinking about is his family, what they were going through, and I think the part that got me more than anything else is we couldn't do anything. Right.
You
And
couldn't fix it.
You couldn't fix it. Right. It was nothing, where you normally would say, hey, what do you need? Hey, let's get meals together. Let's go. You almost are pretty much limited to what you can do. And, outside of just outreach and, sending a message, he's sick. So you really not looking forward to a phone call necessarily. But, but our crews did check in on, and as well as myself on this young firefighter. And then the others that were going through quarantines, checking in, and I know they were scared, they were frustrated, they didn't know what to do. How do you deal with that? The other part of that, which is their family now, especially the ones that were going through the quarantine, because now there's this fear: did I bring this home? Right? And what do you quarantine these folks? Right? So I have to tell you, that was a lot of conversation, especially in the early days of having a location set up for our folks. But man, I tell you that was probably some of the biggest stuff that tore me up is what do you do, right? What if somebody does go home and their family is exposed to it, right? What do you do? And honestly, I have to tell you, I thought about what if somebody dies?
Right.
And I had to be honest with you, that part probably scared me more, had me up more at night when we found out about our firefighter once he had confirmed that he had the COVID-19 was, I was thinking about his whole family, right? His child, his spouse. I'm thinking about, are they going to make it through this? Because for some, they are doing fine and it's mild and they get through it. Some people are dying, right? And that was scary.
Something we're doing is looking at the difference between an exposure and an encounter. For us, if you have your proper PPE on and it does not fail and you get within 6 feet, that is not an exposure, that is an encounter. If you get within that 6 feet and you don't have your PPE or it fails, that is exposure. That is one thing that we're looking at, the difference between an exposure and an encounter.
Yeah, and I think that, when you talk about practices, policies, and procedures, the mechanics of it is pretty cut and dry with what you do or what you don't do. But as we're rolling into the end of our hour, and this was a very, very quick hour, what I'd like for each of you to do is take an opportunity to share what you think the new normal is going to look like when we get through this. And I firmly believe with all my heart and soul that we will get through this, what it's going to look like, and any words of encouragement you'd like to share to folks who are listening in. And we can start with, we'll start with you, Dustin.
The new normal, I think we're going to be, of course, more aware of transmission of germs among ourselves. You're gonna see, you're gonna want to buy some stock in Lysol probably.
Yeah.
But on a serious note, I really think that people are going to be much more aware of things that we probably that everybody should have probably been doing anyway. Washing your hands well, not just running them under the water. Using hand sanitizer, things like that. I think you're going to see more of an awareness of that, and I also think you may end up seeing people more cautious during flu season as a result of this. In the way of encouragement, I would really just encourage our brothers and sisters throughout the fire service, and not just throughout the fire service, just people in general, to take people's concerns seriously. Don't just pass them off as it's easy to take and pass this off as just somebody overreacting or being a worrywart, as my mother would say. It's easy to pass that off, but take these things seriously. Something that, it may not be a big deal in your eyes, but to them, it may be a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
And take that seriously and be that person that's willing to sit and listen without saying, well, you'll get past this, or you should do this and you'll be better. Don't try to fix those people. Just let them work through it themselves and be there to listen.
Mm-hmm. Jimmy, any final words of encouragement?
Yes, sir. A couple of things. I think the new norm, like after September 11th, we had a lot of new norms. I think we'll have some here when it comes to flying. I think you will be required to have your temperature screening before you get on the plane. And now, wearing masks. I think that'll be a new norm. I think the new norm for EMS and fire response is to gear up on PPE and treat everybody like they are exposed to it. Encouragement, you've got to have your faith. Whatever your faith is, you got to be thankful. One thing, we do have jobs in today's economy, and y'all look at it, oh my gosh, unemployment's unbelievable. We have to be for jobs. And one thing I try to do is I try to get out and respond to calls, and because they call us white shirts, how they are, the white shirts. I try to get out, respond to calls, and just let people know, hey, we're here for you. We're here to back you up, and whatever you need from us, just let us know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Thank you. Pat.
Well, I just want to thank you again for the opportunity to be here today. I think that everybody's already hit on what the new norms are going to look like. I think from a fire rescue service, we have to truly be prepared for everything. So for 20 years, we've talked about pandemics and events such as this. We've talked about, we've been to FEMA class or this class talking about these things. And I will tell you, and I can put my hand up and testify that I have said, that'll never happen here, really. I think we'll be okay. I'm not really right. There was no major focus on it. But we've known it for years. And we knew this was coming. But we did not take, I think that from a service, we were nowhere near prepared in this country for it. I think that as fire service leaders, that we have to speak louder. So I think that part of the changes is you're going to hear more from fire service leaders saying, hey, we better ring this bell and we better ring it loud to make sure we're fully prepared to take care of our folks can take care of communities. I think you're going to see those changes there. I think that much like 9/11, what we have to be careful of is 5 years from now, we'll talk about this. 10 years, we'll remember the folks that passed away, right? But then about year 11 or 12, year 15, people start to forget. And then 20 years from now, I'll be 72 years old. That people may not even care or even know about this event. We have to keep it in the forefront and be prepared for not only us, but for future firefighters that are coming along, future fire service leaders, and for our families. So I think that's part of the change. We have to keep it out there. right? We know about some of the other changes in our service I think we're going to come about, but we got to keep it in the forefront as leaders. Words of encouragement, mine to the whole group and anybody that's listening tonight. And much like Jimmy, I think you got to hold your faith here. We have to trust and the Lord above, or whoever or whatever you may believe in that higher power. But I think you have to have that faith there, whatever that is. And then I also believe that I encourage everyone to know that, hey, we are still America strong. This is the United States of America, and we have to continue to do what we're doing right here, which is bringing us all together. Mm-hmm. And I love that. And that's the words of encouragement I throw out there to say, hey, this is what we do as a service for all of us. No matter where you're at in this country, no matter what your background, no matter what you may go through, the one thing you can always count on is the American Fire Service.
Yeah. Cool. Jason Williams, what do you got for us, my friend?
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to be on here with all the chiefs. But the new normal, everybody said it. We're going to be probably more proactive than we ever have been, especially on those medical calls, even when there's no relevant sign or symptom that we think. It'll be full up on PPE probably for a long time. It's interesting. The whole positivity thing came up. I think in the fire service, you do it long enough. One of the hardest things to me personally in the fire service is that battle to stay positive. Mm-hmm. And all of that, usually when we talk about communication, being open and honest about things, that's what helps drive me in that direction. Mm-hmm. So I think that's incredibly important, not even during COVID, but throughout one's career in the fire service. So your attitude is your choice, and you have an opportunity to influence a lot of people on either side of the spectrum. Mm-hmm. So which one do you want to be would be my question to any firefighter that's out there and watching. Words of encouragement are for me is faith, family, fire service. That's the way it rolls. And stand strong on your faith. Do what's right with your family, and then the fire service all comes along with that. Mm-hmm. But anyway, thank you so much for the opportunity.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Jace. Tony.
So I think our new normal will incorporate a lot of social distancing. I think we're going to see a lot of what we're doing here today with a lot of virtual meetings, virtual gatherings, that kind of thing. I think a lot is going to change for us, and it's going to be hard for us to adapt, but we have to adapt. We talk about, COVID-19 doesn't have a face, but we all do. And although you may not be in the vulnerable group, please be respectful of those that have some underlying conditions in which this disease can be fatal for them. So even though the masks aren't comfortable, and y'all know I like to look cute, they're not cute for me, but I have to be respectful of others, and I need to contain my germs. So I wear my mask all the time. Although it's not the greatest thing, I still wear my mask. So I just ask people to please do your part. Do your part in protecting the community. Do your part in protecting your coworkers and your family members. Because COVID-19 does not have a face, and it may be somebody today, but it could be you tomorrow. So just make sure you do your part.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And your words of encouragement to send us all home.
We will get through this. We are strong. We will get through this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Something my grandmother used to tell me when I was in the hospital, and she would come to the hospital, and my grandmother was a very strong woman in her faith. And she impressed that upon the family, because she would knock you upside your head if you dare say you didn't have faith, and you could be faithful that she would do that. And Big Ma used to sit at my bedside, and she would rub my feet. When I was in the hospital, I was totally bandaged from head to the only thing that wasn't bandaged were my feet. And she would sit there and she would rub my feet for hours just praying and giving thanks. And I could not understand what she was giving thanks for. You know, this thing had happened to her favorite grandchild. Why wasn't she mad and angry with God the way I was? And she would tell me, she said, no. She said, people misinterpret scripture in the Bible. And she said, God never said be thankful for all things. He said be thankful in all things. And she said, I'm going to be thankful for you. And I'm going to pray for you, even though you don't want to pray for yourself. And I don't try to impress my beliefs on anyone else. And I make it very clear that I don't tell people how they should believe, but I know what worked for me. And I sit here today knowing without question that my survival had more to do with just the medical care I received. It had a lot to do with people like my Big Ma having faith in me, having faith in God, having faith that I was going to get through this. And I share that to bring it to today. You know, my grandmother didn't know, but she was faithful that she was going to be thankful in all things. And where we are now, it's a scary time. This is new. This is different. We don't have answers. And we know as leaders, we feel we should have answers and able to fix things. And I just so appreciate you guys coming on here, sharing yourself tonight to talk about this, because I think there's power in just sharing how you feel about things. And like she was thankful for me then, I am so very thankful in this pandemic. You know, I am thankful that we are going to get through this, and I'm faithful. I don't know what that will look like, but I know we will get through it. And I want to wrap this up by speaking on behalf of a lot of people who have benefited from the services that you guys perform, and not just what you do with policies and procedures, but what you do as people. Because it doesn't matter how much training you get, if you don't bring yourself into this profession, you're not going to be successful at it. And you have to be successful at it because it impacts too many people. And I, again, say thank you for your commitment to the fire service, and you do make a difference. And I know sometimes it may not feel like it, and sometimes people don't appreciate fire service, but I'm here to tell you publicly that you do make a difference. And I can say it with all confidence because I sit here as the fruits of your labor. You know, you made a difference in my life, and I could never say thank you enough. And I just want people to maybe through this thing have a different appreciation for fire service. You know, because sometimes people don't want to move out of the way for a fire truck, but then they're the same ones that complain when they need fire service that you took too long getting there. You know, and we talk about the new normal. Maybe the new normal, part of that will be a whole different level of appreciation for you guys. And if people have just a fraction of the appreciation I have for you, man, you guys are in for a treat. You know, so again, on behalf of the Georgia Firefighters Prayer Foundation, thank you guys very much for your time tonight. And hopefully somebody gleaned a little bit of something out of this conversation. So you guys continue to be safe, be healthy, take care of yourselves, not just your departments and your communities, but take care of yourselves. And we love you. And again, thank you. You guys have a good evening, okay?
Thank you, Dennis. Thank you, everybody.
Dennis.
Appreciate it.
All right.
Thank you.
See y'all.
Toodles.
Be safe.
Yes.